And we're back. Here we go with the box office top 10 at 26, EO.
Which is the Jerzy Skolimowski film about a donkey. So EO is kind of, is it onomatopoeic? Is it when?
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So the donkey is named EO. And this is inspired by a Bresson film from the 60s, but it's very much its own beast, no pun intended. I really liked it. The story is a donkey who is working in a circus. The circus gets closed down because they don't want animals working in circuses anymore. Goes off on a series of encounters with humans, some of whom are kind, some of whom are cruel, some of whom are crazy. And it's really about, a donkey's eye view of humanity. But it's profound and touching and moving. It's got an absolutely brilliant score by Pavel Mikietin, pardon me. And I really like it. Jerzy Skolimowski has got an incredible career. And there's a BFI retrospective of his entire career, including the weirdy British horror film The Shout, happening at the BFI quite soon. So do check that out.
Girafingo on our YouTube channel about EO.
Yes.
There's a great shot in this film. The donkey is being taken away in a trailer. As it's being transported, we see the donkey's perspective inside the moving trailer, a small cramped trailer taking him or her to some eventual destination. We notice some daylight entering the trailer via a tiny window to the side of the from the side of the donkey. From this same window, we then see a herd of horses galloping into frame, not a human in sight. Yes, it's a juxtaposition, beautiful in its simplicity, but you owe it to yourself to see this scene and embrace its beauty. It's why cinema was created.
It's also, it kind of echoes a scene, which I think is later, which is of EO in a barn, in which there is a sort of a ray of light that comes in, kind of semi-heavenly light, because whenever you have a donkey in a barn, you immediately think the little donkey of Christian iconography. And the Bresson, incidentally, is much more heavily religiously allegorical. This is actually a largely secular film, but though there is that mirroring of those two shots.
Number 20, Saint-Omer.
Which is a really fascinating film by Alice Diop. It's essentially a courtroom drama in which a young woman is accused of having killed her child, and she kind of argues that she did, but she's not guilty because she's not responsible. And this is being watched by a journalist who is writing on the subject of Medea, but who is herself pregnant. And it is one of those examples of a film in which very little happens, and yet a huge amount happens. And it's Robbie and I were very much in agreement on it last week that it is unlike anything else you will see around at the moment.
Number 10, in the 10, Roald Dahl's Matilda the Musical.
It's still there.
Still there.
It's still there.
Number 9 is Babylon.
And on and on and on and on and on.
Number 8 here, number 7 in the States is Megan.
Which I would advise, if you get a moment, I mean, probably when it comes to streaming services, do check it out, because I think you'll enjoy it just because the satire in it is funny.
Number 7 in the UK, The Fabelmans. Not charted in America.
Well, did it? Yeah, but it flopped in America, didn't it? It was one of the, it opened last year, and it was one of the big prestige Oscar bait releases that didn't take any money, which was why when I was doing my review of it, I said it's awards bait because the critics were fawning over it and it was getting all these big awards nominations, but nobody was going to see it. Which is why E.T. is a more interesting film, because it's a crowd pleaser.
Plane is at number 6.
Gerard Butler on a plane. The plane goes down on an island so scary that the army won't go there because the last time they did, they got their ass kicked. So Gerard and his mate have to save the day, and it's ridiculous, but I kind of enjoyed it.
A new entry at number 5 is The Whale.
Yes, I was very sorry that you were off last week, because I don't know whether you listened to the show, but your interview with Brendan Fraser and Darren Aronofsky was terrific. And what I said was that the genius of the interview was not only did you kind of get to the heart of the film, but I also think that you kind of allowed Aronofsky and Brendan Fraser to be hoisted by their own petard, in as much as all the things that I don't like about the film were stuff that they sort of said. Now, Robbie took issue with whether or not, when Aronofsky said it's a small movie with a big heart, whether he was being ironic or whether he was towing the line, or whether that's what he actually thinks. So now that you're here, when Darren Aronofsky said it's a small movie with a big heart, which is the kind of thing that makes me want to tear my ears off and actually is exactly what I don't like about the film, do you think he meant it, or do you think he was just towing a line?
I think he probably meant it. I understand what he was saying. So I would think it was a line he'd probably used before.
Yes, no, absolutely.
And he's quite happy with that line because by the time we get to these people, they've done these interviews in the States and so on. So there are usually lines that they've tried before, and I think he was happy with the line.
But what Robbie was saying was, I don't believe for 1 minute that Darren Aronofsky thinks he's made a small movie with a big heart, and I do.
Alex on Twitter, as much as it wasn't a comfy watch given the known outcome and the characters felt unsympathetic, I still enjoyed everything about The Whale. I've watched a lot of theatre at the cinema in recent years, and this, despite being a film, still felt like that. Okay. Fraser says, Marcus and Simeon, despite being a voracious long-term podcast listener, I've never contacted a podcast. But something so strangely specific happened in a recent episode, I feel obligated to write.
Okay.
As you, Mark, were questioning why the name Fraser was always pronounced Frasier, I couldn't believe what I was hearing, says Fraser. I once had a science teacher who mispronounced my name on every mention, despite correcting them at every single roll call.
Yeah.
Little did I know at the time, but this mispronunciation would become a lifelong annoyance that I have long since stopped correcting.
Precisely.
I could describe my reaction to your support as animated. And I hope no other people in cars nearby saw my supportive display. After many decades of Fraser prejudice, I must say I feel strangely seen. And thank you for your wonderful show.
Sheen. I mean, yeah, it is absolutely baffling. Why would anyone look at Fraser and go Frasier? I would say, incidentally, that it's not in the same league. I spend my life telling people it's Kermode, not Commode, but it makes no difference. So it's like people often correct me to my face. So I'll go, like if I go into the phone shop or something, what's your name? Dr. Kermode. Dr. Commode. No, but you go, yeah, all right, fine. Frank Kermode, who you mentioned earlier on, gave up correcting people. My mum, Audrey Kermode, when trying to book a hotel room in the Isle of Man, which is where the name comes from, and it's a contraction of McDiarmid, said that the point at which she lost hope was when she was trying to book a hotel room in the Isle of Man, and she said, Audrey Kermode, and they said, how do you spell it? And she went, oh, for heaven's sake.
The only story I have that's ever close to that is on we were booking a family holiday to Ireland.
County Mayo.
Well,
I can see this coming.
Precisely right. And we were booking it, and the receptionist said, Mayo, that's a funny name. And I said, well, County Mayo? Oh, yes. So, staying at the wrong hotel.
Anyway, thank you, Fraser. You are seen.
Fraser, thank you very much. Daniel from Calgary, Alberta. Oh, this is on Patan. Yes. Okay, number four here and number 10 in America. Dear Patan and Tiger, I just left a screening of Patan, the 5th installment in the YRF Spy Universe.
Okay.
Is that right? Given my enjoyment of RRR, I was eager to catch more South Asian cinema. Patan, however, left much to be desired. My biggest gripe with the film was that all the action bits were lifted directly from better action movies. In the first 30 minutes, themes and sequences from John Wick, Skyfall, The Winter Soldier and Ghost Protocol are evoked or even ripped off entirely with no attempt at innovation or excitement. And when the filmmakers aren't assaulting your senses with overlong and poorly CGI'd set pieces, the film relies heavily on the fading boyish charms of King Khan himself. I cringed watching 57-year-old Khan dance around scantily clad women and deliver tacky one-liners. His performance lends ironic credence to a gag in the film in which Khan alludes to his retirement before resolving that he should not retire. Derivative, boring, cringeworthy. Patan was disappointing to say the least. I would categorise this as mindless entertainment, as he very well may need a lobotomy to actually enjoy it. He didn't like it.
Okay, well, there we go. I mean, I'm a Shah Rukh Khan fan, I have to say, but then there was once when Shah Rukh Khan starred in a film and I had written a review of it, and I woke up in the morning. This was when I was still on Twitter before Elon Musk is an idiot who destroyed everything and made the world poorer.
I remember that.
And I woke up and overnight I had gained several thousand followers, and I thought, what on earth happened? It turned out Shah Rukh Khan had tweeted or something. It was like, wow, you think you know how big a movie superstar is, and then you meet an actual movie superstar, and wow.
So are you forgiving him as a 57-year-old dancing around scantily clad women making tacky one-liners?
I mean, it's not the first time.
Number 3 in the UK, number 1 in the US. It's Knock at the Cabin.
I'm interested to know whether anyone has got in touch about The Rapture, because Robbie and I disagreed about this. Robbie liked this very much, the new M. Night Shyamalan film. I mean, I think M. Night Shyamalan films are a bit hit and miss. Some of them I like. I liked Old, and I liked Glass, but Robbie liked this more than I did. Setup is same-sex couple with an adopted child are in a cabin. 4 people turn up, led by Dave Bautista, say the world's going to end unless one of you kills one of you. So of the 3 of you, one of you has to die, and they go, well, we don't believe you. And they go, well, if you don't believe us, the apocalypse is going to happen. So it's a kind of, what if, tale of the unexpected. I didn't think it worked very well, but I thought it reminded me of a much better film, which is Michael Tolkien's The Rapture, which is the absolute classic, what if this stuff were real film.
David, on our YouTube channel, the opening scene in Blade Runner 2049 is almost up there with the opening scene in Inglourious Basterds.
This is because Dave Bautista is the person who sets the tone of the Blade Runner scene.
Bautista truly has a remarkable presence, and there really is no one like him working in movies today.
There isn't.
Stephen Lilly, also on our YouTube channel. I was a big wrestling fan back in the early 2000s, the age of Batista, John Cena, and twilight years of The Rock. If you told me at that point that A, all 3 of them would be box office successes, and B, I would actually utter the words, Batista is by far the best actor of the 3, I'd have laughed. Keep up the good word, Dave.
Batista is great, and he's really good in Glass Onion as well. He's very funny in that film.
UK number 2, number 3 in the States is Avatar: Way of Water. Now, here's the thing. When I was off sick...
Yes.
I watched a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And I watched Avatar: Way of Water.
Oh.
And I'm here to tell you that you watched it wrong.
Okay.
First of all, you have to watch it when you're sick.
Okay.
Secondly, I watched it in 3 parts.
I
watched it in 3 hourly episodes with a John Wick movie in between each. And I enjoyed it. Okay? I have to say it was like, okay, I've had an hour, there's John Wick. There's another hour, John Wick 2. Because there's more John Wick.
Okay.
On the
well,
way.
all I can say is, in that case, imagine watching it without the John Wick movies in between and without the toilet breaks, but just in one great big head-thumping 3-hour stodge-a-thon.
I was still surprised, even though one of our correspondents had pointed it out a couple of weeks ago, quite how sort of anti-imperialist it feels, and implicitly anti-American imperialism, and also how you end up, in the words of our correspondent, on the side of the Viet Cong or indigenous folk in general, and I was quite surprised by that.
But it's so bold. It's like,
I did also think that the underwater stuff, the underwater world building was so much better than Wakanda. Movie 2.
Oh, okay.
You're thinking, okay, and I admired that. But you had set the bar so low that I was appreciative of of everything.
Well, in that case, I take that as a compliment. I made the experience better for you, although not as much better as watching 2 John Wick movies during the.
It really is a great way of watching it, I tell you. And the UK number 1, number 4 in the States is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So let me read some of this stuff, because I wasn't here last week.
It was all right.
Richard in Amsterdam. You should really see Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It's easily one of the best animated films of the last 5 years.
I have seen it. I reviewed it.
Tristan in Japan. Mark seemed to have seen the Oscars nomination list before seeing the movie, and therefore ended up mostly shrugging it off as, quotes, not as good as Del Toro's Pinocchio, simply because the 2 films were put on the same arbitrary list. I think this is an unfair stance to take on Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, especially as little was mentioned regarding the production and themes of Puss in Boots. Personally, I think the themes of mortality and family are handled well. Puss and Goldilocks are 2 characters who are chasing after what they think it means to live and to be loved respectively, and have to learn what living and love really are. That does not make it... I'm just skipping it a little bit here. I also think that Puss in Boots has a fun, energetic score, fantastic animation, and a great voice cast that Mark was a little harsh on. I mean, are you really going to complain about Antonio Banderas, Olivia Colman, and Florence Pugh playing off each other?
I didn't complain about Antonio Banderas and Olivia. I said that the voices were good.
Seth on YouTube.
I said Antonio Banderas, I want him to lie next to me on my pillow and whisper sweet nothings in my ear with that voice.
Joining the chorus of people surprised that Mark didn't care for this one. It's not as overtly art with a message as Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, but it still has a good amount going on thematically. The script is as tight as a drum, the animation is frequently outstanding, and the jokes pretty much all hit. Fantastic film, absolutely deserving of its nomination, and for my money, an easy pick, at least over The Sea Beast, Marcel, and Turning Red. And Joanna in Seattle...
Better than Turning Red? No.
Joanna in Seattle, I really enjoyed Mark's review of Pinocchio last week. Note to the pod producer, though, he seemed to do it in place of a review of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Anyway, Puss in Boots #1.
Yeah, well, meh.
But a lot of people.
Yeah, well, that's fine, you know. It's difference of opinion is what makes the world go round.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all the correspondence. We welcome all the correspondence.
Unless the difference of opinion is delivered by Marjorie Taylor Greene, in which case...
Well, she's an idiot.
Go boil your head.
Correspondence at kermodeandmayo.com. We would love to hear from you for next week.
Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. While you're here, check out all the other videos because they're cool too, aren't they?
Yeah, and if you want to keep up to date with everything Kermode and Mayo's take, then check out our social channels.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
I mean, I would. I have done.
Excellent.